Hi everyone, today I'm going to be doing a bit of a shelf tour. Last time I did this one was in March 2020, so I thought it'd be a good idea to do one of these every year and see how my collection changes. So some of these games are purely my own, some are my brother's because we share a collection. And this is actually the shelf that you'll see in the background when I do my videos. So let's go through them. So first off, I've got this little shelf here of my smaller box games. We've got Not Alone, which is a one versus all kind of hide and seek style game. It's my brother's game. It's okay. We've had some good times with it over the years, and it still holds up all right. We've got Cartographers, which is a little roll and write game. Really good one. Probably one of the best roll and writes that I've seen, or a flip and write at least. Point Salad, which is always an easy one to get to the table, plays really quickly, a little set collection game. This one, unfortunately the box isn't great. This one is Push, one of my favourite push your luck style games. I always recommend this one, but I would have liked it to come in a nicer, more decorative box, but never mind. We have the Hobbit Love Letter version. Love Letter is a game that stuck around in my collection for a long time, and it's always a go-to game with our gaming group because sometimes, for some reason, it always goes down really well. And we've had a lot of laugh out loud moments playing Love Letter over the years. Ohanami, which is one that really impressed me last year. It's quickly becoming one of my favourite filler games, and certainly one that is totally on the upper kind of echelon of filler games. We've got Beastie Bar, Born to be Wild. I think this is the third one. This is okay. It's kind of a one where you are like a queuing style game where you're playing cards, you're trying to get to the front of the queue and get into the club. Cool thematic, cool theme, and it works pretty well. We've got The Mind. Everybody knows what The Mind is. Me and my girlfriend like to play this one with our friends, so it's kind of a go-to game for us. High Society, which is another one of my favourite small box games. This is a classic bidding game by Rainer Knizia, and I love the artwork for this Osprey Games version, and certainly a game that's never going to leave my collection. Age of War, another Knizia game, a little dice rolling set collection game, one of my girlfriend's favourites, and one that always gets to the table. Coloretto. And 6 Nymptia. These, and No Thanks, in fact, these are 3 of my go-to filler games, ones that I've never ever had a bad game of, and I absolutely love them, and I think they're probably certainly never going to leave my collection because they're always my go-to games. Hanamakoji, I'm starting to get a little bit tired of this one. Probably one of my most highly rated games I've had in terms of how many lists it's been on and things like that over the years. A couple of years ago, probably about in 2018, 2019, I couldn't stop getting this into the table. It's one of my go-to games. I used to play it with my mum a lot. Starting to get a bit fatigued with it now, but I can't take anything away from its great design. Kariba, this one just about staying in the collection. Probably one of the most simple, light games I've ever played, where you are simply just putting cards down, trying to collect other cards, kind of in this circle of life kind of hierarchy method. Works nicely and it's quick, and another Knizia game. And Red 7, which is a game I don't actually play as often as I probably would like to. This is a little multi-card use game where you are trying to be the last man standing, basically by playing cards in a certain order. Works really well, a game by Carl Chudik, and again, probably would like to play that one more. I've got a couple of button shy games as well. This one, Circle the Wagons, which is a really good two-player only game. Certainly one of the best two-player games I've played in a while, where you are basically going around this rondel trying to pick up cards and fulfill different criteria. And Hierarchy as well. I've only played this one a couple of times and I haven't really solidified my thoughts on this one yet before I put a review out. So I've got kind of these awkward middle-sized boxes here. So Battle Line, another Knizia game, one of my favourite two-player games again. It's kind of a game where you're playing poker over a number of hands, trying to collect these flags, trying to collect either 3 adjacent or any 5 flags. A really great two-player game, one of the go-tos. Red Cathedral, this one was a big hit for me last year, where you have this rondel and these dice on this rondel, and you're moving around collecting resources and building the cathedral. I love the box size of this one, great artwork as well, and I wish more boxes came at this size because it's a full proper Euro game but in a nice little box there, so I could store a lot more on my shelves. For Sale, what more do I have to say about For Sale? One of my go-to games, and probably one of the highest praised games I've ever played. Chiseled, Chiseled's a unique one. It's a kind of a deck deconstruction game where you're trying to build these statues. I quite like the concept of it. It works okay, pretty quick, and I would happily play it anytime really. Trois Dice. Now this is another roll and write game, one that probably doesn't get as much praise as I think it deserves. I don't hear anybody talking about Trois Dice, and I can't quite think why, because I think it's rock solid. I know people think it's quite generic, but it works for me at least. Arboretum, really great cutthroat hand management game. Honestly, if you like your games with very little margin for error, like them to look nice, this is certainly one to go for. One of the best, I think, objective games that I've played. I think it's really wonderful. Biblios, another classic filler. This one holds up so well. The theme isn't going to be for everybody, about being these monks collecting different books and things, but if you like For Sale, no doubt you'll like Biblios. Kashgar, Merchants of the Silk Road. This one is probably one of the most underrated games I've ever played. If you like games like Splendor, this one is way better than that, where you are building 3 different columns of cards and trying to get an engine rolling and fulfilling these contracts. Absolutely brilliant. We've got Isle of Skye, great tile placement game there by Alexander Pfister. Break the Code, and this is one that really took me by surprise. A really simple, probably 15-minute deduction game where you're basically playing cards or choosing cards to ask questions to other players and trying to figure out what numbers are in the centre pool by working out what every other number is. Really great and highly underrated. And another great 2-player only game with Fugitive, another deduction game with a bit of cat and mouse to it. So now talking about my Euro games. So this is my pride and joy really. These are all my favourites. So we've got Trois, we've got Firenze, and Andrea Stedding. We've got some Sebastian Duardin here, again with and Javier George, same designer of Ginkoplis, which I haven't played yet. This is probably the biggest point in I've ever had with so many unplayed games. I think I've only got about 4 or 5, but I've never really had that before. But Ginkoplis is one I'm looking forward to trying. A tile placement game. Citrus, talk about underrated games. This is one I always talk about. Great tile placement game with a nice abstracty feel, but really works for me. Newton, brilliant game there by Nestori Mangoni and Simone Luciani. Love it, brilliant game. A Grand Austria Hotel, not really had anybody ever say a bad word about that, and for good reason. Brilliant little kind of game with lots of combos where you're trying to bring guests into your hotel and then serve them and send them off to their rooms. Really great. I got Marco Polo 2. I ended up getting rid of Marco Polo 1. For this one, I definitely prefer everything Marco Polo 2 does over the original. I just love this one. Lorenzo, Il Magnifico, one of my favourite games ever. Top 3 for me. Absolutely great engine building game, and with a bit of worker placement. Another game that didn't really have too much word of mouth spread about it, but I think there's probably still time for that. This one is Monasterium by Dlp Games. This one took me by surprise last year and ended up being in my top 10 of the year. Really love this little dice drafting game, as you are rolling dice and then using them to take actions, trying to send off little clergymen to different churches and things. Works so well, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm glad I finally got my hands on Hansa Teutonica. This is the big box version. Really affordable with all the different maps in. And just really glad I finally got this into my collection because it was so hard to get hold of for a long time. And that one's certainly not going to go anywhere because it's a classic. Next shelf I have Puerto Rico. Another great game there. This one, one of the best games of all time, as you are trying to build up little settlements and little plantations on Puerto Rico. Great kind of action selection mechanism and a downright classic. I've only got actually 2 Alexander Pfister games in my collection at the moment, despite me having a bit of a binge on his games recently. Blackout Hong Kong really impressed me. Really like this one. And Maracaibo, which is the absolute granddaddy of them all. Love Maracaibo, one of the best games I've ever played and was strongly in my top 10 this year. Certainly a game with everything but the kitchen sink in it. Signorie. This is a game that I haven't played in a while now, actually, but it really impressed me. Another dice drafter where you are either taking the higher value dice and get a discount or taking the lower ones and paying in coins, but you have a certain threshold that you can't go over. Works really well, and I'd certainly like to try this one again soon. A couple of classics here by Wolfgang Kramer. We got Mexica, this one's a real abstract style game where you're trying to get control areas by building these temples. Really great, pretty cutthroat. And another one that's deceptively cutthroat, another game from last year with Renature. This one uses dominoes to control certain tracks. A real accessible area control game that I'd highly recommend. My number one game from last year, this one is Praga Capitolini by Vladimir Suki. Brilliant game. One of the best examples of games with combinations and synergies and things. Absolutely love this one. One of the best games in my collection. Merv as well. I haven't played Merv as much as I would have liked, but playing it for the first time, massively impressed with it, as you are building these buildings down and getting actions on this grid thing and going up different tracks and things. Has everything I like. Really beautiful box as well. Great artwork, and really happy with that one, and certainly looking forward to digging deeper on it. But I reviewed it very well, and again came in my top 10 last year. Istanbul, a game that I'd never get bored of, one that grows on me, and the more I play it, the more I like it. Brilliant game that you can kind of tailor to how you want to play it. Heaven and Ale, I haven't played Heaven and Ale yet. Looks really promising, to be honest, from the rule set. A rondel game, and well, I can't really share much more than that because I haven't played it, but looking forward to getting a review of that one out. Next shelf, I have Coimbra. Coimbra is a game that I never have had a bad game of. Another dice drafting game, but this one you are choosing dice based on two different criteria. So not only is the pips important, but also the colour, because the colour lets you go up certain tracks. Great game, so much fun, a good degree of engine building as well in this one. But if you want the kind of level up of this one, then definitely try Trismegistus, which is probably the heaviest game in my collection. This one you are basically drafting dice based on three criteria: to the symbol, the colour, and the number in that pool as well. I can't really go into much more detail than that because it's a really heavy game, but I love it, and I think it's just about in my top 5 ever. So highly praise this one, and I'm surprised this one never gets talked about, considering how great Daniele Tascini games are. This is pretty much my little Daniele Tascini section. So you've got Trismegistus, Sulkin, Teotihuacan, and Tekenyu. The T-Series. Tascini is one of the best designers ever. Absolutely love everything he puts out. Just a genius. And whatever he does bring out, I will buy because he is that good. Probably my favourite designer. He's just incredible. So if you're probably familiar with these games. Tawentin Suyu was, I suppose, a sister game to the T-Series, but this one is purely by David Terzi. But I was really impressed by this one. I thought it might be a bit too convoluted because the board is quite busy. But when you play it, it actually works really well. It doesn't quite look as good as these ones, but it plays in a similar kind of fashion, and it has some familiarity to it, but still feeling like it's a bit different, if that makes sense. But really impressed with this one, and again, I'm looking forward to diving a bit deeper with this one because I haven't played it overly or too much. Another Knizia game with Ra. I didn't realise how many Knizia games I had. This one's probably my favourite Knizia. A classic auction game and set collection game. Deus is one that impressed me. If you like engine building and card play, Deus is a really strong one as you are playing these cards out, building these chains of actions, and trying to conquer the board, really. And another one I haven't played with Rajas of the Ganges by the Brands. This one seems to have everything I like about gaming. It has all the dice drafting and things. A really beautiful looking board. Certainly looking forward to trying this one because I've heard a lot of good things over the years. And the bottom shelf on this particular shelf is Orléans with the Trade and Intrigue expansion. Absolute necessity, and a great game that I've played quite a bit over the years, but this has probably been the longest time since I've played Orléans. But hey, it's never going to leave my collection because it's that good. And another Suki game, actually the only second one I've ever played recently, Underwater Cities. This one, a bit like Praga, just blew me away, and instantly got on my shelf, and I have no intention of changing that anytime soon. Just another game of great combos and card play, simple mechanically, but very satisfying. And Genoa as well, which is by Rüdiger Dorn, who designed Istanbul, and I think probably one of the games that inspired that, where it has this mechanism where you have a stack of discs and then you can move it around this grid by dropping one off at a time. But this one has a more negotiation element to it. I've only played this at 3 players so far, and I want to play it at more than that because I think it's going to peak at more than that to get my full and final review out. So looking forward to trying it at the full complement, but until then, I'm not gonna review it. So that's this shelf, and let's take a look at some of my other shelves. Okay, so I've got my little Kallax over here. This one is pretty much where I hold all my Stefan Feld games. I've also got the Queen's Architect here, which I'm borrowing from a friend. But I've only recently got this Kallax, so it's not completely full, and I've had a bit of a cull recently as well. So I've got some empty holes here, but let's have a look through them. So again, Stefan Feld games. These are my absolute favourites. He's one of my favourite designers, at least in terms of how prolific he is. I've got so many of his games. Luna, which really impressed me, and my brother and I really enjoy this one. Hard to explain, pretty abstract, and pretty deterministic, but wow, is it unique. Bonfire as well, which was another top 10 from 2020. Really impressed with Bonfire. It has a real throwback Stefan Feld feel that brings feelings of games like Atmosphere and Trajan back, where you're on that heavier end of things. These are absolutely just top tier games. I think all four of these actually have got my shield of, or my elite shield, which is my highest kind of acclaim I can give a game. Luna just a little bit under that. On this shelf as well, more Stefan Feld, Amerigo, another one of my favourite Felds. Definitely like a 9 out of 10 for me. Love Amerigo with the Cube Tower. A lot of fun, and probably the funnest Feld game in terms of that fun factor. Has a real tactile feel to it, but still some really good decisions. Burgundy, amazing. In the Year of the Dragon, another game that's grown on me hugely over the years. The more I play it, the more I like it. Very tough to play, difficult, and has a very different vibe to other Feld games. Definitely not a point salad style game, but love it equally. Forum Trajanum, again, you can see here this one's still in its shrink. Haven't played this one yet, but looking forward to doing so. I think this was the heavier of the two that came out a couple of years ago when Carpe Diem was released, but looking forward to trying this one. Certainly looks like it's got some interesting mechanisms in there. I've got some bigger awkward shaped boxes here with Rococo, the deluxe edition. One of my favourite looking boxes, absolutely stunning game with Ian O'Toole artwork, with this kind of watercolour, Rococo era ballroom dancing. Love it. Really happy to have this in my collection. Expensive, but definitely worth it because it looks gorgeous. Barrage. Oh, wow, what a game this one is. Absolutely incredible game about harnessing the power of water and getting points. But wow, what a brilliant game. One of the best games I've played in a long time. Glenmore 2, probably my favourite tile placement only game. Wow, what another great game. Really high level game quality, certainly a great level of quality control, I think, in my shelves, and I certainly haven't let anything slip through that doesn't need to be here. Really great games. This one is the more awkward shaped boxes with Freedom and Freeze games and Mac Gertz games. These boxes are really awkward. They're long and thin boxes, but Fast Sloths was a game that impressed me. Another pick up and deliver race style game. Fayum was a really unique game, again, as you can see by Freedom and Freeze here. One that you really have to try out and maybe check my review out to see how this one plays, where you're drafting all these different cards and making this whole civilization bit made up of all these different wooden blocks and things, getting points in lots of different ways. But really intriguing game that I recommend you check out. Power Grid, an absolute classic, and Freedom and Freeze's long stay game. And Navigador and Concordia by Mac Gertz. Two of my top 10, I think, just absolutely incredible designs. Elegant, streamlined Euros with nothing wrong with them whatsoever. Love them. Empty Kallax. Couple of big boxes. El Grande, my number one board game of all time. Probably a bit like Orleans. This is the longest time I haven't played El Grande, probably because of the coronavirus. I've not met up with my bigger groups, so you need at least 4 players to play this one really, but still my favourite game. And what more can I say than that? Merlin, the big box, the deluxe one. And you recently got this one. I really enjoy Merlin, and the big box holds everything in it. It's got some really nice game trays in there, and it's nice to have it all in one place without having the core box bursting at the seams. We got Museum down here. Museum, still waiting for the big box version of this one. Interesting to see what the new rules are when it comes out, but a beautiful looking, as you can see here. More vintage trait artwork. A set collection game where you're collecting all these different artifacts and things. I think this one's pretty much underrated, and not many people talk about this one anymore. You've got my legendary stuff down here. So this is the game that got me into board gaming, really. I've got pretty much everything for Legendary, but recently I've starting to fall off because I think it's getting a bit bloated for me. Personally, I'm not really playing this one as much as I should. And then I've got my party games. So I've had a bit of a cutback on party games, actually, but I've tried to keep the best of the best. So Wits and Wages, again, classic. When I Dream always goes down well for me. I love how quick it is, and it's got some real laugh-out-loud moments. Crosswords, really, really good game if you like games like Codenames. And that's certainly one to check out. Masterword, a good kind of mastermind variant, but we're trying to find a word. That one, I was really impressed with these ones that came out last year. Monstrosity, I'm yet to play, but intrigued to see it because it's a really great idea where you're trying to draw monsters based on the description of someone else. And a couple of Oink games. We've got A Fake Artist Goes to New York and Insider. And the final little square here, we've got Concept, basically charades on a board. Sheriff of Nottingham, my board game group like this one, with the bluffing and stuff. Just one, probably the most accessible one, and a recent Spiel des Jahres winner. Cross Clues, one of the best party games I've played in a long time. If you like games like Cross Clues, games like Codenames, but want to play cooperatively, then Cross Clues is definitely one to check out. Much, much better than Codenames, in my opinion. And possibly my favourite party game with Telestrations. Absolutely brilliant. Let's go on to my final shelf. And my final shelf here is pretty empty because I've had a cull recently, and I also picked up the Kallax. So naturally that created a bit of space, but these are mostly my brother's games, but there are some on here that are mine, and some games that I like quite a bit. So we've got Libertaria. This is like a simultaneous card play game set in this pirate ship where you're playing these cards and they interact with each other in different ways, and you're trying to get points. Good game. I haven't played it in a while again, but still holds up well. Chronicles of Crime. This is a great kind of murder mystery style game that uses an app. Whitechapel, one of the cleanest examples of a one versus all kind of hidden movement game. Love how clean this one is. Always has a kind of timeless and evergreen feel to it because it is that pure. We got Awkward Guests, another game that I always shout about, and how great this one is. My favourite deduction game by far. Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. We got Karuba, probably one of the best gateway style games as you're placing these tiles trying to get these adventurers to their temples. Mysterium, which to be honest I mainly play as Dixit nowadays. I prefer Dixit to Mysterium, but you can still just use the cards on here. And Marrakesh, very simple roll and move style game that works well. And finally, getting towards the end here, we got Whistle Mountain, a big hit from 2020, worker placement game, where you are trying to fit these Tetris shapes on the board and then squeeze between them to activate worker placement spots. Good Gateway Plus style game. We've got the Quacks of Quedlinburg, classic. Bumuntu, a nice abstract style game where you're trying to collect sets of animals. Gods Love Dinosaurs, where you're trying to build a little ecosystem. Escape the Aliens in Outer Space. Haven't played this one, but interested to try it. We got Celestia, which another push your luck game where you're trying to not work together, but you're trying to stay in a blimp as long as you can to get as many points. 5-minute mystery. I only just kind of touched the sides of this one. It's quite an interesting game where you're working together to solve a little deduction puzzle. Tumbletown, one of my biggest surprises from last year. Love this dice manipulation game where you're building a little town out. Works really well, and it's from the designer of Calico. We have Cryptid, another deduction game, one of the best. QE, kind of rings bells of high society where you're trying to bid for these different industries, but trying not to be the person who bid the most at the end of the game. But this one has absolutely no boundaries on what you can do in this one. Really fun and a great kind of party plus game. Villagers, a nice little tableau builder. And my final shelf, we got Operation Faust down there, which to be honest I don't know why it's done my collection, but my gaming group seem to like it, and we always have a bit of a laugh with it. Nidavellir, brilliant kind of entry-level game that came out last year. Oh, what a great set collection and auction game this one is. Ship Shape, a really great puzzly style game. This one's definitely grown on me as I play it more and more, and certainly would play this one any time because it's a lot of fun. A nice tactile puzzle. The Bloody Inn, a hand management game there with a really cool theme and great artwork. Letter Jam, one that again, really grown on me, and one that's held up way better than I thought it was. I thought it'd be a bit of a gimmick, but the deduction and word kind of game come together really well, and it's worked well with a lot of different people. Decrypto, kind of code names on steroids, really. If you like code names but want a more ramped up version where you've got to be a bit more clever with your answers, then Decrypto is a great example of that. Blueprints, a little bit underwhelmed with this one. It's my brother's game, but I think if you like games like Sagrada, then I think this one's kind of left in the dust, really. I think Sagrada and Tumbletown do what this does a lot better. It's kind of another dice manipulation game. Odin's Ravens, very simple two-player game. I kind of played this one on holiday with my girlfriend. The Resistance Avalon, I think the only social deduction game I have now. The best and the only one I have. Tifa Tashin, one of my favourite hidden... Well, this is very much a hidden gem that no one plays, and this version is completely unavailable now. But one of my favourite negotiation games and a great party game. Hex Roller, another little underrated roll and write game. Pretty standard and pretty basic from the look of it. It doesn't look overly inspiring, but I enjoy it. The Crew... Oriflamme, which is another kind of card placement game. Well, you play cards and they interact with each other and you're trying to get points in different ways. Probably need to play this one more before I get my thoughts out. And finally, Get Out Colditz, which is a game I really hated, but my brother likes it. So that concludes everything in my collection. You see, it's quite different here. Mainly like my Euro games, but there's quite a variety and always something to play. And I'm always looking forward to bringing new things into it. So if you have enjoyed the video, please hit like and subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.